again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting but quarantined edition of the Jim Cornette Experience. Yes, we're here again from Castle Cornette with no intruders, with deadly viruses around. And today we're going to have a literal potpourri of pro wrestling prognostication, emails from the cult of Cornette, bad outlaw wrestling on television. And wouldn't you know who won the cake, ladies and gentlemen? Wouldn't you know who won the cake? To join me, my cohort and co-host, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. He's the cakeless wonder. He's got no icing, no candles, and no decoration, but plenty of dough. It's the great Brian Last.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again. Just playing with all my dough over here at Last Manor.
I'm trying to do a happy dance about, I got my cake, I got it. Now I'm thinking about you playing with dough. That's like that old joke about the guy that got the job at the bakery. He made these great butter cookies. They said, well, they taste great. How do you make them? He said, well, I just take this big glob of dough in my hand, and then I pull my shirt up, and I pull my pants down, and I press it on my belly button, and then I put it on the pan. And they said, oh, God, no, we don't know if we want to eat those cookies anymore. Well, hell, you should have been here when I was making the donuts. So anyway, I got my cakes. Two cakes.
We thank the fine people at YouTube for sending you these cakes.
No, fuck YouTube.
Fantastic people.
No, fuck you. Well, I guess you're going to have to edit that out of YouTube. But no, YouTube. Yeah, put that. Yeah. YouTube sent me caca. They sent me nothing. They sent me nada. These cakes came from people who responded to my need for sugary, frosting-filled goodness. None other than that unsavory character himself, jacked up Jeremy Bagley, the ringleader of the thing, and the entire Cult of Cornette Facebook group as well. They're perpetrators, instigators amongst them like John Fell in Baltimore and Hot Rod Esty and my Jewish stalker Mike Kaufman and others. The Cult of Cornette Facebook group came and two custom made, I'll have you know, from the finest bakery in wherever the suburb is of fucking New York that fucking Bagley got the cakes from. But they were shipped down here
from New York.
Yes, New York State, not New York City itself. The city's so nice they had to name it twice. But he lives up there. He's a native of them parts. So I didn't see the return address on exactly where the bakery was, but it's Bake Me a Wish Bakery. And this is oh my God, I ate half of one last night. Just sat down with the cake in front of me with a fork and ate half of. The only reason I quit was because I didn't want to deprive myself of being able to eat the other half today. And then I still got one more cake to go. At this rate, I'll have cake for 4 days. But it's, but anyway, thank you guys. Nothing from YouTube for 100,000 subscribers, or now we've got over 125,000. They're going to owe me a lot of calories at some point, but I did get the cake from the cult members. And happy birthday today to Mike Kaufman. May 22nd, this fiasco gets let loose on the public that we're recording right now, right?
Correct. Good. I'm glad you keep on top of these things. See, I'm checking you. I knew that all along. I'm checking you. See how quick you are. Happy birthday, Mike. We love you. And Stace might even get a corner of a piece of my cake. If I don't catch her. Misogynist.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Are you going soft too? I'm not even going to get it. And darn them babies. Damn babies. Anyway, speaking of which, my babies, the little packages that I'm releasing upon the world, and from JimCornette.com, there is joy in Mudville. We have not struck out. If you were a customer at JimCornette.com and ordered from Cornette's Collectibles in the month of April when our circuits were blown and we had to shut down to try to figure out how the fuck to fill all this shit, if you ordered domestically, which means if you're a member of the United States, not even contiguous, Alaska and Hawaii would count.
Your stuff is either already in your hands or is in the mail officially. And that's reason for rejoicing. Right there, somebody's calling me to tell me that they got this and they were so happy. Hold on 1 second. And that's where they were calling me to tell me they got the stuff and it was wonderful. See that edit that Brian last made in post-production? So you'll never know a thing, ladies and gentlemen. However, we had a few of the international orders. For those of you who ordered in April from outside the United States, you're saying, what about me? You left me out. A few of those are in the mail, and many more are going to be on their way. But here is, this is the Jim Cornette experience. And part of my experience, now almost all of my experience, involves the post office in some form. So I'm going to give you some post office gossip. People say, well, we could listen to Jim Cornette read the phone book. Well, here I'm just going to talk about the post office and people's social interactions. So pardon me for a moment. But this is all I'm doing with my life. You realize in 9 weeks now, Brian Last, 9 weeks, I have been to the post office. As we've mentioned many, many times, but I've been to the post office and maybe 3 or 4 times to a little convenience store off on a side road that is near there that I can get sweets without having to go to the grocery. And otherwise, I've been nowhere in public. And I wear my mask and the gloves. I got the Purell. I spray myself with all kinds of shit. I have long sleeves, long pants, right? But most of my time is spent at the post office. And so that is my social circle now. And of course, we've talked about my dedicated clerk, Bree. She's the youngest, the healthiest, the most vibrant, and also the fastest. And she's good, boy. Boom. And so I'm in there when Bree is working, but the rest of them are dropping like flies. Lib, we call him. He's our buddy. He's quarantined now with his wife. His wife got exposed through her work, and he's been quarantined, and probably, I guess, we'll be again next week with her. So there's a man down. And then another clerk's Mike has a baby at home. He hasn't been in forever, so he's down. John the Hunchback, I love him. He's been there forever, and he's a great guy to talk to, but not the quickest processor of these multiple 100 package orders. I don't know that any of us will live long enough if I went to John with 150 packages that people would get those. And now with the virus, they've cut down to the 2 windows. They've got 4 windows, but only 2 clerks can be up there at a time. So I figured out that now that I've caught it, and we opened the store this past Monday, and response has been vigorous, but not ridiculous. We're going to take care of you people also, but we got to get these internationals out from last month's orders. And I figured out that if I took all of them at one time and started with when they open at 8:30 in the morning, since it takes 3 to 5 minutes for each package because the clerk has to manually enter the information and the customs forms, and then they print multiple labels out of the machine. And then now the regulation is the customer has to personally sign the label on the package and a boom, boom, boom. If I started when they opened, I would still be there at 3 p.m. with the same clerk on the same transaction. I don't think that's legal. They have to be given a lunch break, right? We'd have to break this up. And I would probably be shanked by the rest of the people trying to mail packages out. So we're going to be starting this coming week, and Monday, Memorial Day in the United States is a holiday. So this coming Tuesday, we're going to be shipping internationals in stages. Stace's going to take over boxes while I do domestics in the morning or vice versa. And we're going to try to keep up with the demand and finally get you folks across the pond and across the seas taken care of. Do not lose faith. But if you've ordered since we reopened the store on Monday the 18th, we're working on those too over the long weekend because we've got the internationals packed. It's just the logistical problem of shipping, but still expect a 2-week turnaround because we can't put you at the post office window in front of all of these folks until we get some of that taken care of as well. So in international orders, if you haven't ordered, you want to order now and you don't live in the United States of America, order now for Christmas. That's all I can tell you. I'm not trying to discourage you. But you've been warned here. We're trying to do this as best. Still, by God,
I'm going to do this personally. When these people buy products for me, it's my signature, and I have personally put my stamp of approval and in most cases, licked the envelope to get these people their high-quality classic wrestling merchandise.
How do you make the donuts?
That is none of your business there, Cosmo. All right, and here's a little piece of trivia also for the people who think that I'm just lazing around and doing nothing with my time instead of working hard for the Cornette's Collectibles customers. And by the way, if you want to order from me, move slowly to the computer. Do not panic. Nothing is going to sell out. Leave some time for delivery, but let's not just create an issue here. Don't make me have to pull this thing over again. Anyway, I got my phone bill. I didn't turn my cell phone on in the month of April because I never went away from home, right? And on my landline, I had a 9-minute-a-day average. I'm kind of proud of that. I'm trying to get it down to 0, but I hate to talk on the phone anymore because I'm always so far behind on shit. And when I start talking to people, Brian, sometimes I get involved in a conversation that takes a while.
Yep.
And you didn't have to agree so fucking quickly on that, or you could have put up token resistance. But anyway, so if I talk to 5 people, it's like 5 hours, or what did I fucking just do with the goddamn day? I've got all these, so I'm always behind, and I never call anybody back because I'm crazy. But yeah, I've been incommunicado, except for you and the listeners and the program here. Anyway,
what was your highest average? Do you know, in terms of how many minutes you per day spent on the phone?
In the OVW or Smoky Mountain days, I probably spent more time on the phone in OVW just because I was home more because the trips were shorter. But it was like every waking hour, it seemed like at some points. And that's what turned me off on being on the phone, was being on the phone. All right, I got another email here from another Cult of Cornette member celebrating some merriment, but it might not be as merry as Kaufman's. It's from Laura, and she's in the UK. I know this much. I don't know exactly where, but she says, "Hi, my husband is a massive fan of you and your YouTube channel. He sends me to bed early every Thursday night so he can listen to your podcasts. I'm a wrestling widow." But she put a little smiley face on there, so I don't think she's mad about it. But she says he's currently undergoing chemotherapy and will be in the hospital for his 30th birthday, which is this Friday, May 22nd. If this has been bad enough, as we aren't allowed to visit him because of the coronavirus, I was wondering if you could record him a birthday message so we can send him a montage of birthday messages. His name is Jay. Don't worry if you can. It was worth a shot. And it's a picture of a little monkey. I don't know what that even means, but Laura, no, come back in the room if Jay has sent you out so you can hear it also. Happy birthday, Jay. I hope you get out of the hospital quickly. Well, I guess you can't call her in the room because she can't be in the hospital room with you, but get out of the hospital and stay in the room and listen to the shows. But that's got to suck. Not only is he having chemotherapy on his birthday, he's only 30, but he's in the hospital and she can't visit him because of the coronavirus. So,
but you don't know. It may be relaxing for him.
Well, no, now come on.
Off, some time away.
No, but
close your eyes whenever you want. Relax.
But she is being so nice as to try to do something like this that she's not one of the people you want to get away from. She's one of the good ones. Say, who's misogynistic now? You prick. I'm taking up for Laura. But anyway, happy birthday, Jay, and get out of the hospital soon. And I can't really, Brian, I don't know how to record video and send it around just willy-nilly around the world on the interwebs and everything. And that's another reason why also people ask me if I'm going to be on that Cameo thing, because so many of the boys are on Cameo or whatever, which they've contacted me, gosh, last year or more than a year or so ago. And we mentioned it once, but the thing, especially lately, can you imagine if I had everything else that I've got to do, but also, oh, hey, Jim, you plugged that Cameo where they can get a video message from you. You got these 500 1-minute promos to do in a week. I think they give you a week deadline. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I don't want to disappoint people, so that's why I've not ventured down that path. But we send them out here sometimes. So happy birthday, Jay.
Happy birthday, Jay.
And well, gosh, I guess everybody's, been talking about what happened with Shad Gaspard from Crime Time this past week, and several people tweeted me about it because they remembered he had been here originally in Louisville. In OVW, he actually started here, I think, his training, and he was here for several months before I was gone in maybe late 2004 to 2005. And, first of all, it's so horrible what happened. I can't even imagine something like that. And, you see this in the movies that people are fucking being swept away by currents and shit. I didn't even know what a riptide was. I've been on very few beaches in my life and never in the ocean over my head. So I have no idea what the fuck goes on, but apparently this can come up and just fucking take you off, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've seen this happen a lot in my lifetime because I grew up and I lived the majority of my life on the beach, Long Beach, New York, and usually at least once a year it would happen, and it's just very scary. The ocean very quickly can get very powerful, and you don't always. Well, but
again, you see we'll get back to Shad in a second, but I'm just gobsmacked at this that you see people on beaches and swimming in especially in California. It's sunny. I know there's some beaches in the Northeast that can get a little rocky and dodgy, but you see these nice beaches in Southern California, and all of a sudden, what happens? Is it like big waves that just come up, or what?
No, it's a current. It's a current. It's not really about the big waves. It's about just all of a sudden the water starts pulling you, and it's
holy shit.
If you've never been in a situation like that, it's hard to explain. But
and they said obviously it wasn't like that. They were secluded because the report said that the lifeguards were rescuing hundreds of people around the area at that time. So anyway, the point is he was with his son there, and they said that's the last thing. When the lifeguards got out there, he told him to help his son first, and then they never saw him again. And that's so sad. Like I said, he was in OVW. He's a good big kid. I didn't know him well, and I think I saw him in person one other time since the OVW days at a fan fest a couple of years ago. I think I've been in Jersey, I believe is where it was. But we saw instantly he was a good big athletic guy. He had trained in fighting even at that time, and I think it done more sense. And he was quick and athletic. We used him as an underneath heel because he was green and had just started, but he never started as a job guy because with a guy with that size and looked like that, you couldn't. So I think he bodyguarded for a while and, was just an underneath heel in a tag team where the partner could get beat. And then I think that maybe the last thing I did was put him with Carlito, thinking that maybe Carlito could, fucking find some energy to actually, perform at that stage of his life. But I was mistaken. Anyway, but, he ended up catching on, and his partner, JTG, in the WWE, and I still to this day don't know what that young man's real name is, but he was in OVW also because he started I think in the amateur class, and the guys ribbed him at Dinsmore and whatever. There's a rap star or a hip hop star, whatever, named Nelly, right? You're the music man. Okay. Yeah. Well, I didn't know this. And we were at like the flea market show where I would let the guys from the amateur class get their feet wet, having matches in front of people. And Armando Estrada, he was here. He was a rookie at the time. He tweeted that he and Beast, I put them together as a team, and that was his first tag team partner. And some of those guys were coming out of the amateur class. We'd put them on these small shows at the church gym or at the flea market or whatever in front of people. But they told me the Nelly was JTG, but they had been calling him Nelly because at that point in time, something he had done reminded them of Nelly.
Well, I didn't know there was a fucking Nelly. I didn't know it was a rib. All I'd ever heard him call him was fucking Nelly. So I was doing the ring announcing, and I introduced him as Nelly. So the kid became Nelly. Because I'm like, I forgot they never told me his fucking, what is his wrestling name? So there's Nelly. And he wrestled as Nelly for a little while. But anyway, they got the WWE spot and did quite well from what I understand. That was one of my periods where I wasn't watching a lot of the TV. But anyway, it's just, it's sad. And you know, I wish I'd have known him better than that.
He's a hero. It was very easy for someone to say, save me, but he wanted to make sure his son was saved. And geez, that's what a hero. I have so much respect for that.
And there was more than one of them, I guess, but at the same time here, he's 6'7" and was like 270 and was still in great shape from the pictures. And if he couldn't by himself do anything about this water, it obviously took more than one grown man to help his son. So that was just a horrible situation. Anyway, speaking of horrible situations, the Dark Side of the Ring season finale, which was the highest rated one of the bunch, was on Owen Hart this past week. And I've liked it. It was the first time because I don't know that I ever met Martha. Martha never came to the matches, at least that I was around. She might have been there at that Calgary Stampede pay-per-view in 97. And I mean, I don't believe our paths crossed. I may have said hello to her, but it was good getting to hear directly from her something for once. But I appreciate everybody's feedback. They said, my God, Cornette's turned babyface, because I actually showed some human emotion. It killed my gimmick, apparently. But I'd been prepping for the producers to come down and talk about the subjects that we were going to talk about at that shoot, obviously, for the previous day or two before they got there. And I'd been thinking about Owen and went back and read up on, the contemporaneous reports and just had been thinking about him as a person and in general. And then, that was really, I think, the first thing that we talked about that day. And as I just started thinking about him and had been going through the pictures and telling some of the stories and everything and getting to that point, I just cracked up momentarily. So I didn't mean to actually act like a fucking rational human being for once in public. I do apologize. But I hope regardless of anything else to come out of the television program, I hope this answered once and for all the question in everybody's mind about why won't Martha let Owen be in the Hall of Fame? Shame on her. Is it so difficult, Brian, for people to figure that out? Why that she would probably not be in favor of that? As she said, it's not even a hall, it's a hallway of fame. Was that the verbiage?
Did you see, it is bothersome that so many people kind of buy this line that, just, let him in for the fans, which is complete garbage if you know anything about the story. Did you see Jerry McDevitt's statement this week?
Well, yeah, Jerry McDevitt proves once again that in the exception of our good friend Stephen P. New, which case he's one of the good ones. He's the one with a heart. The reason why a snake doesn't bite Jerry McDevitt is professional courtesy. At this point, just, I guarantee you Jerry McDevitt voted for Donald Trump and he's a fucking hardcore Republican because he just sounds like a fucking asshole. Just take the fucking loss and move on, Jerry. You already look like shit in this whole thing. There was no way to paint this in any other way other than everybody involved in that fucking thing from the WWF side looked like shit. It was dripping from all their faces. He ain't going to be the baby face after all this time. Anyway, that's why fans actually on Twitter will say that Martha is being selfish for not letting, as you said, for not letting the fans get the enjoyment of seeing Owen in the Hall of Fame so that the company that he was working for, that was responsible criminally, or not criminally, but civilly in court for his death, can advertise the event and
sell tickets to it, or in the post-pandemic world make a profit off of it somehow. But anyway, on a lighter note about people that are no longer with us. See, how's that for a segue? I got an email that you're going to get a kick out of from a guy named Travis. I will give no last name just in case anybody's looking for him. Anyway, it's a long email. I'm going to read just a couple of excerpts. Since my friends and I grew up massive wrestling fans, we always looked for other people who loved wrestling as much as we did. One summer afternoon in the early 2000s, we were in our early teens. We were biking along an ordinary street up on Hamilton Mountain. Locals will know exactly what I mean, in Hamilton, Ontario, when a big gentleman who was getting out of his truck at his house yelled down at us. "Hey, get back here," was echoed through the street, as this gentleman was quite large in stature and no doubt had the loud voice to back it up. We circled back to see what was up, where he pointed at my Undertaker shirt and said, "Love the shirt, kid. Mark is a nice guy." I seemed a touch confused, and then he introduced himself to us. The man was Ian Johnny K9 Kreuter.
Bruiser Bedlam.
Bruiser Bedlam. He then told us that he used to be a professional wrestler, which got us excited. Naturally, I had a lot of questions for him. I started asking. He then invited us into his backyard, saying, "Let's order a pizza and talk wrestling, buddy." Oh, it's Bruiser. So there we were, sitting in his backyard, eating pizza. He also gave us our first ever beers, talked wrestling, family, anything that came up. I remember him talking about his days in Smoky Mountain, his brief time in WWE. He was an open book with us and had a great time talking wrestling. We only intended on staying a few minutes, but ended up staying all day with him. At the end of it, he offered to let us crash there, but we knew we had to go. He told us come back whenever we wanted to come back, hang out. We were over the moon that we got to meet and hang out with a real pro wrestler. I got home to call my uncle and tell him all about it. He seemed excited for me until I told him who it was I met. Even then, everyone around town knew of Johnny's reputation except for young, naive us. My uncle said he doesn't think Johnny is a nice guy, so maybe avoid him next time. I didn't think anything of it then. Over the next few months, we would always find ourselves running into him, whether it be passing by his place, at the store, him honking at us as he drove by, whatever it was. He always made sure to stop and talk and always invited us back to the house. Then one day, he was gone. It was early 2005 when my friend called me saying that Johnny had been arrested for the murder of one of his lawyers. You remember that? Well, actually, the murder was one of his lawyers and her husband. Was that correct?
I seem to remember that being the case, yeah.
That some people may think that he was involved in. We were shocked, and it was then I started asking people more about his past. That's when I learned about his checkered history, so I can't say it was a surprise in the end. All I knew was that he was always super nice with us. We never saw him again, but I usually saw his name in the news over the years as he was getting out of jail and finding his way back in there. He ended up passing away in a halfway house that's about 2 minutes from my house. I know he had quite the history, but I personally don't have a bad word about him because he was so nice to two random kids and enjoyed talking wrestling with us. And that is Bruiser Bedlam, Johnny K9. As you know personally, the nicest, friendliest, happiest, smilingest guy in the world that somehow or another was fucking implicated in everything from murdering his attorneys to blowing up the police station to get rid of the evidence against the motorcycle gang. As a matter of fact, well, I actually, there's another paragraph where he mentions that Tracy Smothers one time he met him and said he tried to blow up a police station. But you would have never thought, right? I mean, you know, you look at him and go, if I don't want to fuck with this guy or piss him off, but just the happiest, nicest guy in the world. But he fell in with the wrong people. The motorcycle club. I think that was the root of a lot of the ills there.
What was the tattoo he had? True to the Crew? Was that
True to the Crew. Well, we asked him about that. For the folks who have not seen his picture, or ever saw him in person, go back and at least after 1994, I don't know when he got it, but that's when we started using him in Knoxville. And I'd seen him on that independent show up in Detroit for Gary Woronchik. And I said, this guy, what a fucking
What a gimmick, a living gimmick. You don't have to give him a gimmick, right? But he had giant letters, "True to the Crew," in an oval across, like Undertaker has the BSK, whatever the fuck, but it "True to the Crew." And so we asked him, well, what does that mean? And when he had been in prison before, which was actually the first time I ever found out he was in jail, when he told his story, because it wasn't like he advertised it. And I didn't run a background check on him. I just booked him. But anyway, he said when he'd been in prison, they all agreed to get it when they got out. So he got out and he got it. I said, well, he said, I didn't really want to. It's just everybody agreed. So I kind of went along with it. I said, well, when you got out, why the fuck didn't you just not get it? He said, because they'd get out too. And those people, if you make them a promise, you do whatever the fuck it is you said you were going to do. So he actually got that tattoo on the theory that people, and when they got out of prison, they checked up on it apparently. So I think Bruiser was unfortunately the victim of circumstance in a lot of cases. But what a guy. What a great fucking guy, right?
He was really nice to me when I met him. Yeah, I have a picture of me and him without his shirt on, of course.
Well, of course, he never wore a shirt. He would come down to Knoxville, and I used him in cold weather, too. He was down there at, like, Thanksgiving time. And he would drive down for the weekend shows from Hamilton or somewhere in Ontario, and he'd pull up in that Jeep with no top on it and no shirt on, and his little fucking cap that he wore and his goddamn gym shorts, or maybe he'd have that torn up Bad Boys Gym shirt that was more hanging off him than anything else and provided no fucking, and it was open air goddamn vehicle, and he'd pull up to the goddamn Smoky Mountain Flophouse where all the boys stayed, and it was 30-degree weather and didn't think anything of it. Because you know why? I'll tell you why, Brian, because he was healthy. He was a healthy son of a gun. He was in the gym, he was working out, and he ate right. Did you see that body? He ate right. And they didn't even have great products back then like they do now to help you cut the time and the energy that you spend doing all this juicing and getting a bunch of fresh ingredients and going to the store time after time, when instead you can find a product like Athletic Greens. Can you imagine what Bruiser Bedlam would have looked like on Athletic Greens? My God, he would have been a beast, a monster. He would have been Olympian, a Greek god in stature, if he had had a daily drink that improves your everyday performance by addressing the 4 pillars of health, just like the 4 horsemen: energy, recovery, gut health, and immune support. This stuff is great for probiotics and digestive enzymes for your stomach, vitamin C, zinc citrate for your immune system. You mix this stuff up. It even comes with a mixer. Stace loves it. I just saw her. She's hogged it all. She made a big fucking green drink and drank it all down right in front of me just the other day. But it's a powder that is diet friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, or just like me, you need to do something to flush all the sugar, the grease, the gravy, and the fried foods out of your system and feel better. There's less than a gram of sugar in this stuff. It's badass. You remember when you were juicing and spraying things all over the place? Your kitchen looked like an I Love Lucy episode.
Yeah, I was about to say I love juicing. I don't love juicing. I love drinking the juice. The actual process and cleanup and everything is a pain in the ass. But I have been drinking my Athletic Greens every single morning. I love it. It gives me some pep in my step and no cleanup. No cleanup. No dealing with all sorts of pulp of every fruit and vegetable all over the house. It has all the vitamins and minerals you need, and it doesn't have all that cleanup, all that process of washing the fruit and cutting the fruit and vegetables and sticking them in the juicer and then getting your little bit of juice and then having to clean everything up.
And cutting your finger.
That hasn't happened, but it certainly won't be happening with Athletic Greens.
That's right. Pep in your step, some zip in your pip, some walk in your talk or talk in your walk. It'll wire y'all up. Folks, anyway, whether you're looking to boost your energy levels, support your immune system, address gut health, or more, now's the perfect time. To try Athletic Greens for yourself, you can go to athleticgreens.com.
JCE, and you get 20 free daily travel packs with your first purchase. That's a $79 added value, and you can get the greens delivered straight to your door. Don't get the goods delivered to your door. Get the greens delivered to your door. athleticgreens.com/JCE. 20 free daily travel packs with your very first purchase, and feel better, and it tastes good too. With just a hint of banana.
I haven't tasted that hint of banana once, and
that's Stacy has
drink
identified
this every day. I don't know what she's drinking.
Identified it, and it's got all kinds of fruits and vegetables and vitamins and minerals and Vitamita Vegemin. It's got all kind of stuff in it, and it's good too.
It's very good.
It's very good. All right, as I said, I need to take vitamins and fiber and etc. because while I've been home, I've been eating too many sweets and too many fried foods because I've been closed up, right? And I'm figuring, all right, if I can't go out to a restaurant because I'm afraid I'll catch some horrible fucking fungus, I'm gonna go ahead and make my own delicacies that I love, which encompass too much grease and gravy and things like that. But I am taking care of my health with stuff like we just talked about, the athletic greens and various things. Well, son of a gun, I've got some wrestling discussion from a member of the cult. Chris from San Diego. Hello, Chris. I was watching some old USWA recently. Billy Joe Travis came out disguised as a janitor picking up trash at ringside. This was in the Memphis studio. They're having the wrestling program live on Saturday morning. I remember this. And Billy Joe Travis is fucking working a deal with Jeff Jarrett. And while Jeff is wrestling, you see behind the ring, you see a fucking guy with an old cap and he's got the garbage can. He's got a goddamn broom, and it looks like the station janitor has wandered in. And suddenly, Chris goes on to say, he throws his garbage can into the ring, climbs in, and hits Jeff Jarrett one time over the head with it. Jarrett went down like a sack of potatoes, and he had to be stretchered off. Then the guy back at the USWA control room had to chime in as if he were just getting breaking news that Jeff Jarrett appears to be okay so that he could come back next week. My mind has become so conditioned to modern wrestling, so much so that I was shocked in the moment to see Jarrett go down from one garbage can hit. In psychology terms, though, it was perfect. Jarrett got surprised and knocked out by a heavy object like a normal person should. He remained out cold while other babyfaces checked on him. He was put motionless onto a stretcher. They later announced that he was okay and would return, setting up a feud with Billy Joe Travis. Everything was put into motion from one single hit, and it kept my attention the whole time. Today, a garbage can shot is some kind of throwaway that barely slows someone down. It promotes no angles. It really does nothing. So much effort for nothing, less than 1 second of action in a match. You are correct, sir. Chris, you ought to be a doctor. You win the prize.
Hey, Chris, keep watching USWA. Eventually, Billy Joe Travis gets arrested on air.
Yeah,
for real. For real. I think, back child support, I think.
Was it? I don't know if was that child support or was it just that a female fan that he may have defrauded of some money wanted that money back. Because remember when he went to this is about the same time they had the USWA takeover in Dallas, right? And they were going back and forth from Memphis to the Sportatorium, and Jarrett and the Von Erichs were working together. And once that Billy Joe Travis had been in Dallas for about 6 weeks, you see signs in the fucking Sportatorium audience, "Give me back my money, Billy Joe."
That was a separate
oh my
incident.
God.
That was a separate incident.
Yeah, well, but I mean, it is separate incident. There were a number of separate incidents, but yeah, they arrested him. They came to arrest him at the station, and Lawler talked to the cops and said, "Well, look, if he doesn't go anywhere, we just let him go out on TV and then arrest him out there instead of just taking him out here now." And they got the arrest on television. But that's why, that's another reason why people can't understand that weren't there in the territory. Well, they did some ridiculous things in Memphis, Cornette. You like that? That's because the ridiculous things actually did fucking happen in a lot of the cases, or there was some root of truth to the ridiculousness. And it could be bought that way. That was Jerry Jarrett's philosophy. Don't just make shit up from scratch. Even if it's a little bit of boring shit, tell them a bunch of truth about these people, and then when you start working, they won't know where the right turn came. And now people are just making shit up from scratch, and we'll get to that here in a little while. Outlaw wrestling on television. That may take a while. But it's amazing to me that, now the boys, they don't even get it, that they would rather do more damage to themselves to register less and make things mean less than, it makes me tear my hair out of my head, Brian. It makes me tear the hair right out of my head, and I'm starting to have some noticeable bear patches.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Oh, no. That one's going to end up on some kind of compilation. Oh, no. And that's why we are proud to announce that we have made an arrangement with the folks at Keeps, because I know that not only am I going to be in need of this before long if I watch any more of this wrestling, but we have also seen some pictures of some Cult of Cornette members out there, and I don't think it's necessarily assaulting anyone's character or personality or appearance to say that some of our fans have occasion to have hair loss. I think that's a fair statement that nobody should be upset about. Do you concur?
I would say that's a fair statement that some people may be upset about, but it's a fair statement.
Well, they may get upset about it, but it is a fair statement. But did you know 2 out of 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35. And the best way to prevent hair loss is to do something about it now while you still have hair left. And actually, I wish I'd have known about this many years ago before I started tearing mine out and losing it in all kinds of ways. But anyway, with the folks at Keeps, you can get treated from home. In these pandemic times, you don't have to go to a doctor's office to get a prescription for hair loss, because you can go to a doctor online and get the medication delivered right to your door. They make it easy. They deliver the medication every 3 months, so you don't have to wait at the pharmacy where all the people with all the germs go, and or awkward doctor visits. They offer generic versions of the only 2 FDA-approved hair loss products out there, and they're cheaper than most from what I've been told as we research this. And so right now, you can start at just $10 a month, Keeps treatments, and the sooner you start, the more hair you'll save, is also what I've been told. So, for a limited time only, you can get your first month free. Basically, we're trying to help you people not end up in a situation where you got more hair on your chin than you do on your head, like Hot Rod Rodney Estee.
Oh, don't besmirch the listeners.
I told him that to his face yesterday, so it's okay. But anyway, if you're ready to take some action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/JCE and receive your first month of treatment for free. As they say, treatments start at just $10 a month. It takes 4 to 6 months to start seeing results. And so if you start now, you'll be ahead of the game. And you can go to the website. They've got customer photos. They've got all kinds of testimonials, all kinds of things. Anyway, Keeps, KEEPS.com/JCE, first month free. I want to make sure that you folks stay hairy, except when you need Manscaped, and that's a whole nother fucking situation.
That's right. Someone maybe get some Keeps for one of the Young Bucks as a gift.
Oh, God. Old balding Buck struck again here the other day. I can't. We'll talk about AEW in a second. As a matter of fact, let's talk about next week when we're going to talk about AEW again. Folks have been saying you gave Money in the Bank the proper burial You told us what you thought of it. You sacrificed time out of your life you'll never get back again, Jim Cornette. That's what they're saying to me, to tell us what you thought of Money in the Bank, because we wanted to hear it worse than we wanted to see Money in the Bank. Are you going to give the same thing to Double or Nothing? And Brian Last, you have put the hammerlock on me, and we're apparently going to watch Double or Nothing and see what they have to show for themselves. Is that correct?
That is correct. Because of listener demand, we are going to watch and review Double or Nothing. Me personally, I would have chose nothing. But we will be watching Double or Nothing, and the review will be next week on the drive-thru.
And also, and let's make note, I know the pay-per-view is Saturday night, but to have time, because I can't stay up that late. I'm going to bed 8:30, 8:45 these days, going to sleep at least. Sometimes it's in the bed, sometimes it's not. But after a hard day in the mail order mines, I can't make it all the way up to 10, 11 o'clock at night. So I'm going to watch that thing on Sunday, and we're going to record on Monday, and it's going to air on Tuesday. So you have to wait one day. Oh, that's only a mere 24 hours till Tuesday, May 26th, and the drive-thru will drop with the Double or Nothing review on it next week. Is that and that's pretty succinctly stated, right?
That is correct, but I do want to say, if you're someone who's used to the Monday schedule, and it is a holiday, so I was about to say a lot of people will be home. A lot of people are home anyway.
You're home anyway.
But, of course, you can go patreon.com/Cornette for $5 a month. You get in the door, and you get access to the archives of the Jim Cornette Experience and Jim Cornette's Drive-Thru. And we actually just put up one of the most requested episodes, which is you and Missy Hyatt from the summer of 2014. And
I remember that.
Tons of episodes up right now. So if you're missing Jim on Monday or anytime, patreon.com/Cornette.
And how can you miss me when I never go away? And while we're at it, don't forget to join the over 125,000 subscribers on official Jim Cornette on YouTube.
March to 1 million.
The march to me. We're going to be, I may have to stop in the middle and rest. I don't know if I can march all that way. I may have to start walking every once in a while and kind of meandering around a little bit. Anyway, what are you doing this week before we go into this wrestling on television that I've been seeing?
Another action-packed week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, and information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcasts or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A couple of notes. The next edition of the Super Studcast for patrons of Ron Fuller Studcast comes out this Tuesday, and it is part 2 of Ron's look at Jim Barnett, one of the most captivating figures in professional wrestling history, one of the most influential figures in wrestling history. Part 1 was, I think, around 2 hours. Part 2 will be as well, featuring Ron talking with Kevin Sullivan, Dr. D. David Schultz, and even Mr. Jim Cornette himself. Check that out.
Who?
You!
I resemble that remark.
Patreon.com/Studcast. If you ever wanted to learn about Jim Barnett, it's going to be all together 4 hours, all about one of the most influential, like I said before, one of the most interesting people in the history of wrestling, Jim Barnett. Patreon.com/Studcast. Also want to make mention of John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight, Then and Now, which has become incredibly popular in the last several months. We are now in March of 1990. Of course, what we do is John and I review the original broadcast of Pro Wrestling Spotlight, the groundbreaking and landmark wrestling radio show which aired from 1989 to 1995. We are now in 1990, and we are just coming out of Wrestle War 90. The NWA, Jim, you probably remember, injuries everywhere. It wasn't just Sting. Arn Anderson got hurt. There were rumors that we discussed on this show that Lex Luger got hurt. I guess Samu hit him with the belt, the U.S. title, after a match, and Lex had to get stitches, but people thought he was injured further than that at the time.
Yeah, and wasn't that where Buzz Sawyer broke his wrist?
Buzz Sawyer broke his wrist. I think Shane Douglas hurt his knee. Stan Lane, did he have a neck issue around this time?
God, he had something, but luckily, I don't even remember if he did take off. It was a couple of days, if that, but everybody else was fucked. Stan slipped out relatively unscathed. That's when Sawyer came off the top with a flying, not a frog splash the way he did it. He just did a giant fucking splash, and it was stiff as fuck, but somehow or another, he came down and turned his wrist underneath him. So he dove off the top rope and landed with a good portion of his weight
on his wrist itself and the back of his hand and just broke it right in fucking half. And he was done. There he was.
Lots of action in the NWA, the WWF building up WrestleMania 6, Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior. Lots of things happening in the world of wrestling. Plus, John Arezzi's weekly, I don't want to use the word battle, but weekly run-in with George from Lindenhurst. John's talking about all this serious wrestling news, Jim, all these big things. It's a news-heavy show. He has guests like Dave Meltzer and Steve Beverly and various other people. And there's one phone call that every time this guy calls in, I shouldn't say guy, this kid calls in, John audibly sighs, goes, oh. And it's George from Lindenhurst. He sounds like this, hello, John Anthony. And it's just this little kid who always wants to know about Zeus and other things in the middle of all this stuff happening. So it's become quite the popular feature on the show, John's ongoing battles with George from Lindenhurst. Hear more today, pwspod.com, or look for John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight then and now, wherever you find your favorite podcast. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership!
Stop mocking me!
Thank you to everyone who has checked out the most recent episode. It has become very popular, and I'm very happy to announce episode 103 and 104 are both in production right now. 103, hopefully within the next week and a half will be out. It is going to be packed with action and wrestling talk. We're going to look at Andre the Giant, Gene Kiniski, and so much more. Really excited for everyone to hear this, as well as the Iron Sheik. I can't forget that. We have a really interesting segment about the Iron Sheik. But go through the archives today, 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcast. If you like classic wrestling, if you like classic wrestling talk and humor, the 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership!
Oh, God damn it. All right, we've put this off long enough, but there were a number of things that I wanted to see on the AEW television broadcast of this past Wednesday night, May 20th. Jake Roberts and Arn Anderson in the ring. MJF live anytime is worth the price of admission alone. But it's all self-inflicted. And let me just start with an email that will set the tone for this AEW television review. From someone whose name will be withheld, because I don't know who might be looking for him after this. Hi, Jim. I've just caught up with the podcast. Your thoughts on Moxley and Brody Lee eloquently expressed what I've thought about them for years. I've been listening to you try and give these guys the benefit of the doubt for all this time and could hear you wondering why they were so well liked and knew you were going to get that they both were just not very good. I thought I would help explain why these two have the reputation they do, and a lot of it goes back to our old friend, Uncle Dave Meltzer. Beyond the obvious, they both left WWE willingly for AEW, and so they are heroes now to that demographic. Brody Lee is real-life best friends with Chris Harrington, long-term member of Dave's message board and economics contributor to the Observer newsletter. Chris Harrington, and folks, feel free for anybody to fact-check this because I'm enlightened by this, but if anyone calls this into question, please let me know. Chris Harrington is now in charge of the finances at AEW. Dave Meltzer recommended him to Tony Khan and got him the job. Brody Lee talks to Dave all the time, and Dave has always promoted the guy on his radio shows and called for him to get a big push. He's also a moves and flips guy, despite being 6'6" and 275 pounds, big Japanese wrestling fan that's also into all that silly stuff and worked for Chikara, so an absolute hero to those guys. So apparently, Brody Lee's best friend is one of Dave Meltzer's friends that now works in charge of finances at AEW. I don't know whether this is Wouldn't You Know Who Won the Pony or it really is All Friends Wrestling.
Well, I could tell you Chris Harrington's name was the name on that contract we saw between the Maryland State Athletic Commission and AEW. I don't know if contract's the right word. The resolution, I guess, or whatever it was.
Yes, the resolution of the complaint.
He was the name on there and he was the signature.
At first, when I read Chris Harrington, I was thinking half of America's Most Wanted with James Storm, but that was Chris Harris. Nevertheless, anyway, this mystery writer continues. As for Moxley, when the Shield were put together, everyone in WWE was telling Dave that Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins were going to be the big stars of the team. Imagine that.
Roman Reigns, The Rock's cousin, a 6'4", 275-pound Samoan badass who looks like a movie star and who can work and is tough and dedicated. And Seth Rollins, a guy with a great body who can talk and is great in the ring, etc. Although they've numbed that talking down with this gimmick they've given him. But anyway, imagine that they were going to be the stars. So Dave relentlessly bashed Roman Reigns and promoted that Dean Ambrose should be in that spot. So for 5 years, Meltzer pushed the narrative that Dean Ambrose was the next Stone Cold Steve Austin and Roman Reigns was Lex Luger. It's religious doctrine now that Moxley is great and should be the top guy in the business. It's going to take a while for the penny to drop that Roman Reigns is actually really good and acts serious and is a believable, hardworking, tough guy, and that Moxley has some talking ability but is a goof cosplayer himself. Have you seen his indie work pre-WWE? No, I actually haven't. He goes on to say, woof, thumbtacks, ladders, light tubes, bullshit, but he said fuck and put his middle finger up a lot, so he must be Austin. Give me a break. Well, some of this explains some of that. Wouldn't you think? Anyway, having prefaced that, or that having prefaced what we saw on All Elite Wrestling, are all these people completely out of their rabbit-ass minds?
Which people specifically are you speaking of? The fans of All Elite Wrestling, or who?
Well, no, the people involved in this television program, with a couple of exceptions. Especially for a go-home, for a pay-per-view. And once again, a lot of this is self-inflicted. We'll go over it in detail.
It's all self-inflicted.
But I'm not talking about their shortcomings because they can't have fans in the building or they can't have a full roster. I'm talking about what they do with the people they've got on the television program or what they let them do. They open the show. There's a cold open with a package on the pay-per-view and plugging that with the NFL style voiceover, right? And the guy's got a
may have actually been Liev Schreiber, the guy who, the actor who did the HBO 24/7.
Oh, good Lord.
It sounded like him. If it wasn't him, it sounded just like him.
Well, it was a good voice. I didn't know they'd go to that expense, but do the visuals of some of the talent and the actions that they are taking in the video not match the gravitas of the voice? They're trying to go for an old time, like Steve Austin and somebody that drew mega millions of dollars with those great pay-per-view voiceover cold opens they did back in the day. They're trying to have that flavor, but the visuals and the talent and some of the things that they're doing do not match the seriousness of the voiceover and the tone of the piece. And then here comes the Inner Circle in the limousine so that they can jump out, and Jericho's bragging about breaking the drone. But have you noticed that Alex Marvez continues to have the TV personality of a shoe salesman?
He's awful on there. Did he even ask a question? He's like, Inner Circle, you're here, or like whatever he said. He has no personality to be
like
on
Big
air.
Mama. When Big Mama did that video that they ended up not airing on only one television show, and it didn't air ever again, I think, or did it air at all? Where she found Jimmy Valiant on the streets where he had been cast out since he'd been beaten. And she said, I've looked in bars, I've looked in cars, and here you are. Anyway, we're not knocking Alex Marvez as a rotten human being. He's a fine person. I'm sure he loves animals and he contributes to a variety of major charities, but it just doesn't need to be on television. Anyway, but that was okay because he looked like fucking Bob Costas next to what we were presented next. This was what got me ticked off. Yes, there are talent limitations. We're in a pandemic, et cetera, but somebody thought that the good idea to open this television program would be to put Jon Moxley, arguably along with Jericho, their biggest name star, in the ring with some outlaw guy with a fucking black sock on his fucking head and finger painting on his chest backed up by the rottenest, most outlaw, most Nick Goulas-ish spot show band of heels that I've ever seen in wrestling in my life. This motley crew makes the fucking stable that I had in Georgia in the summer of '83 look like the Four Horsemen. It's fucking ridiculous. This dying gimmick. Now the two that started this whole fucking wrestling pandemic of a gimmick, the gimmick pandemic, Pizzeria Uno and the one guy that looks like an athlete, Grayson, are stuck in Canada and can't be involved in this. So they've got a bunch of fucking outlaw guys with socks on their faces and Brody Lee, who gave a promo that sounded like a fucking manager audition promo for a local cable access fucking indie show that guys run in their spare time after their real jobs. Did I make that plain enough? That was the worst interview I've ever heard on national fucking television. There's no emotion. I didn't understand what the fuck he was talking about. He's having these fucking guys. He has the commanding presence of a fucking eggplant. I would, even if him being that big, he doesn't look like he's intimidating anyone because he's so emotionless. He's like playing Robbie the Robot in a fucking low-grade version of fucking Forbidden Planet. Is Ed Wood directing this goddamn television program? Stop me before I sub-reference again. I wouldn't have aired this on Ohio Valley Wrestling Television. It was so bad it gave me an anxiety attack. Then he sent 10 to hurt Moxley. And Moxley then comes into the empty stadium, outdoor arena, amphitheater, from the parking lot, and he should be going, oh, heck yeah, because it's Stone Cold Steve Austin light. Now, having said that, what did you think of the promo, first of all, before we go to the match?
Last week, I think I said I hated the AEW show. I really hated the entire show this week. The promo and Brody Lee, since he got there, is not doing anything for me.
It's doing less than that. It's doing things against him or doing things against you. It's making you not want to see this fucking guy anymore. The gimmick, the presentation, the fucking the costuming, the staffing of it, the casting of the Dork Order. But anyway, but then here's the bell rings with 10 and the masked guy and Moxley. And this was one of the better television matches that they have ever presented. Moxley did this part perfectly. He kicked the guy's ass. He got cut off from behind when he was trying to intimidate the referee, because that's his thing that he would do. But Ref Aubrey didn't have any of it. She stood her ground. And then he gets cut off from behind. He lets the guy get some heat on him, but not too much. The guy gets a couple of 1 counts, not even 2 counts. Moxley stayed alive. He fired up. He got stopped again for a second. And then he laid the guy out with his fucking finish. He milked it and walked around while the guy was flat. Yes, he picked the unconscious guy up real quick and hit him with the pile driver. But then he let him lay there again. Obviously, it wasn't like it was killing the fucking finish because the guy's dead. Then he hit finally his other DDT in a lazy cover because he didn't need to fucking hold the guy down. And he made his point. That was the best, most logical match that I've seen Moxley have to do to actually get over, I think, ever. So, remember that Stewie Griffin compliment sandwich where you start with something good, then you hit the criticism, and then you end with something good again? This is going to be the opposite of that. They started with the worst fucking talent promo I've ever seen on Major League fucking wrestling on national cable television. Had a real good fucking match to accomplish a point and get a guy over, and then went to complete shit again. Because every piece of goodwill that Moxley built up with me during this fucking match where he did everything right was completely fucked by the fucking afterbirth. First, Moxley rolls out of the ring and grabs a chair and throws it in over the top rope, and the guy's selling in the ring, and it fucking landed on him, hit him. That was careless as fuck. Could have broke his fucking teeth out. Then he gets another chair, so now he's got 2 chairs in the ring. He rolls in and he traps the guy's arm in the chair like he's going to Pillmanize. That became a phrase in wrestling after Austin and Pillman did that angle with it. You stick the arm or the leg in the chair where the seat is on the arm, where you can stomp the seat, but because of the way the chair folds up, it doesn't, unless you really fuck it up, and I've seen guys do that, really doesn't break the fucking bone. But Moxley he traps the guy's arm in the chair, and he's got the other chair in his hand, and now a microphone has appeared in his hand. He was a circus juggler in his previous existence. He's got one chair in one hand. He's got the foot on the chair that's on the guy's arm holding him down. The guy is barely trying to get out. He's making token waving motions with his other arm like, oh, please let me out, sir. And Moxley starts cutting a promo. Remember what I said? Refer to last week. Apparently Mox is not a regular listener of the program. Refer to last week when I said when you've got somebody laying there and you're going into a long-winded promo, if it's a top guy, it buries them. But if it's anybody, it gets old. He's cutting this promo while with one foot, he's standing on the chair that's on this guy's arm. The guy's got 2 free legs and a fucking free arm, and he's giving token, if that, resistance. And he's threatening to break this guy's arm. It was horrible and phony because the guy still, my God, he's not a goddamn 90-year-old paraplegic woman. Even if he's taking all of these finishes, he's moving. Because here's another thing. If he just laid there fucking dead, you can't beat a dead horse or a dead body. So the guy has to be conscious, but this shit has to be done with some sense of urgency and believability, with people trying to stop it, whatever the fuck. He's standing there on this fucking thing and going on forever and threatening to break this guy's arm. And the guy is not, with every last ounce of energy in his body, kicking and screaming and saying, no, don't do it. Nothing. He's just laying there. Then here comes Brody Lee on the big screen and does another bad promo about the pay-per-view while the guy is in the ring. And because did you catch, Brian, that the screen was behind Moxley? So Moxley had to turn around and look over his shoulder to look up at Brody Lee while not letting his foot off the chair, or elsewise his prey would escape. Fucking hell. And then Brody Lee says, well, I'm leaving. And he leaves, and it was about as exciting as it sounded. And they walked out, and of course he left his guy to be. So Moxley then takes the one chair and hits the other chair, which was totally unnecessary, because when Austin and Pillman did it, and I guarantee it got a heck of a lot more attention, drew more money, he just stomped the fucking chair seat. You don't have hitting the chair with another chair while it's on the guy's. It's like putting a hat on a hat. It doesn't even make any sense otherwise than it makes fucking noise. But if you do it right and you stomp it, it makes noise. But what the fuck? He put a hat on a hat. And the guy then sold it like shit because it looked like shit because it was fucking phony. And it took forever. And what the fuck? Right? I don't know. What were you captivated by that angle?
No. It began a night of a show that I hated.
No, there's where you put in your, oh no.
Yeah, oh no. I wasn't captivated by this. I had to remind myself several times throughout the show that this was indeed the go-home show to the pay-per-view. No, I didn't care for this at all.
And you didn't have to remind yourself because it was a lack of them telling you. You had to remind yourself because it was a lack of them making you give a shit.
That's exactly right. And we can, I don't know if you have anything in your notes about the commentators, but that's becoming a bigger and bigger problem every single week.
They know that you, I mean, JR a couple times, and we'll get to him. I wrote a couple down, but they know, except for Tony, who I think always gives the impression he's happy to be there. JR's rolling his eyes verbally. I think even fucking Excrement. What's the mask guy's name? Exhibit? Whatever the fuck he knows at this point what the fuck's going on here.
While you could certainly understand why Jim Ross would be rolling his eyes or not thinking anything is that great, the fact that the commentators at times are just joking and laughing with each other while serious stuff's happening, it doesn't seem like they're taking what's happening seriously.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I don't see a lot of serious stuff happening. And then here's the thing, and I've been there I don't believe I've been victim of it, but I'm sure somebody will find a tape somewhere where I was joking around as an announcer inappropriately about another subject instead of covering something halfway decent that was going on. You get in that habit when you're sitting there for 30 or 40 minutes watching hoo-ha, and then suddenly seriousness breaks out. It takes a minute for you to realize that, oh shit, this isn't going to suck like the other shit did. You know, there's, they have the greatest atmosphere for this. And with all the people now that they've got in this outdoor amphitheater, I find myself forgetting that, you know, there's no people there because they don't have just empty seats everywhere and all lit up and et cetera. And they have people making noise and cheering and booing. So the atmosphere is great, but they just still have no mental discipline to either take themselves seriously, present something that people are going to bite into in a serious way, or just save some of the talent from their worst fucking instincts, which is to just jack off for their friends. Or sometimes what they think is actually good, and we point out is not. But, you know, so that segment that we just talked about, that was the first 20 minutes of the show. If anybody hung around after that, then they got to see one of the good ones. MJF. Yeah, we should have the hallelujah music when we come to the MJF portion of the program, because at least we know what we're going to get, which is gold. In this case, it was the ultimate test because they have booked MJF, their most promising rising young talent, against a fucking snaggletooth trailer park looking 12-year-old skateboarder that's being presented as a fucking professional wrestler. So going in, I'm thinking, okay, this is the ultimate test. Can he make even this somehow fucking plausible, palatable? And before anybody says, well, now Cornette likes Marco Stunt because MJF's in the ring with him, let me just reiterate that it is not only an insult, an embarrassment, a disgrace, a dishonor to the wrestling business. It is a stain on it. It is a goddamn crime against nature and the wrestling business, akin to bestiality with a porcupine, to put this little snot-nosed pipsqueak in the ring and present him as a professional wrestler. He visually and probably legitimately could not whip girls or midgets. As a matter of fact, I don't think he can whip any girl on the roster except, and including Riho. And I've wrestled a couple of midget wrestlers that could have kicked his fucking ass. It's a joke and a publicity stunt. And it brings shame and dishonor, as well as the high Outlaw Mud Show rating, to their program to expose him on television. Having said that, let's see how good MJF is. Can he do this? Can he make this somehow palatable without burying himself? And the answer was yes. And he didn't reinvent the wheel. He did exactly what any top heel of the 70s or 80s or 60s or whatever would have done, unless they were Abdullah the Butcher, in which case he just picked his teeth with the kid. But a fucking working heel that is also a brash chicken shit. Some people have likened him to Gino Hernandez. I don't think Gino was ever as good as MJF. But he did exactly what, if MJF is really who he is purported to be and presented to be, and had a legitimate contest with this fucking pipsqueak, this pissant, this is what it would have looked like. It ain't that hard. He was less, Marco Stunt was less competitive against MJF than he was against Lance Archer, because MJF apparently is smarter than everybody else. I don't know what to explain, because he basically sat the kid down and told him, look, they're fucking pushing me and I'm a star and this has to be this way. I guess. I don't fucking know. But he was condescending. He didn't take the guy seriously, either in his body language or the way he attacked or his facial expressions, the things he was saying. Even when the sunset flip, MJF sells it like he's fucking, he can't stop himself from going over. Oh my God. And he said, nah, just kidding with you. Fuck you. And snatched the kid up by his fucking neck. He made Marco Stunt slap himself with his own hand and then fucking stuck it up Marco Stunt's own nose and made him eat his own booger. I've not seen that since the days of Ronnie Garvin. The comeback that he got a little comeback Marco's stunted growth did, which was a slap and a shin kick, and then fucking MJF shut him down again and toyed with him and had the attitude. And finally, and it wasn't trying any big moves, didn't give him any big moves, didn't take any big moves. Because this isn't supposed to be the main event at fucking Starrcade 86. It's supposed to get MJF over on national TV for his pay-per-view match with Jungle Boy. So then finally, when the fucking goof has to make a comeback, MJF sells an eye rake, a Hurricane Rana into the turnbuckle where he still never went off his feet, 2 drop kicks that he never took a bump on. He got sunset flipped, so he got rolled down, and then he took a knee to the face while he was still on his knees, so he never took a fucking bump for this guy. He misses his own charge and goes to the floor, misses an axe handle to the apron and hurt his own hands, missed a tackle into the steps, and then cut the goof off on a dive with one shot, hit him with a shoulder breaker, put on the Fujiwara, got the tap out, and then fucking held it a second too long and bit the fucking goof's fingers. What a heel. If it has to be done, if they have to fucking present this sideshow freak and his, then you've got to treat him that way, because you can't get a major talent over as any legitimate threat to anybody having competitive matches with a kid from a fucking trailer park at a park in Olive Branch. Is this up for debate? Does anybody... Why does anybody not see this?
I can't answer that question.
But anyway, let's see. Then MJF, and now here was the thing. The promo, which was good, he offered to let Marco Stunt kiss the ring. And in actuality, he's going to kiss him, or he's going to punch him and knock him out. A big one-punch KO of the little kid with the fucking gimmick ring. Did you see Marco Stunt moved? He ducked it. He ducked it. Go back and watch on slow motion. As MJF is swinging, he's going to swing and hit the kid, allegedly, on the side of the head with the ring, and Stunt starts selling it before his hand is there, so his hand went straight over the fucking top of the kid's head. Because he fucking flinched and ducked, moved on his punch. He's taking all these goddamn dives off the roof. He broke his leg clean in half, Marco Stunted Growth did, in a fucking bar by doing a sunset flip off the goddamn bar. They do all that shit. He's going to flinch on the best worker in the company throwing a punch at him. I couldn't fucking believe it. So then here comes Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy to make the awkward save, because I don't know who set this up, or, well, I shouldn't say that, because it may have looked differently than it was set up. But Lucha Boy and Junglesaurus, Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy come and hit the ring, and it's supposed to be a deal where the heels powder with no contact. But you've got Wardlow in there, and he's a big badass and a bodyguard. He can't bail. But you got Luchasaurus, and he can't back up. But there was nobody out there trying to fucking pull this thing apart. There was no referees or agents or whatever. So when the babyfaces hit the ring, Luchasaurus had to get right up in Wardlow's face without touching him. And MJF had to just pull Wardlow back, and then they kind of left the building, and the babyfaces stood there in the goddamn ring with their dicks in their hands. So it was a flat out. Under normal circumstances, the heels just have to fucking bail. But Wardlow, you got one that can't run. So honestly, to me, what should have happened in an alternate universe where somebody possibly oversaw these type of things is that here comes Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy after Marco Stunt gets knocked out. And at that point, the fucking heels are standing over him, and Luchasaurus hops in there and gets in a goddamn 1-2 even with Wardlow, and they're just throwing big fucking bombs. And goddamn, wait a ding, 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 the bell's ringing, and here comes some fucking referees, and maybe a fucking agent or a security guy or two. And they're trying to pull them apart. Meanwhile, Jungle Boy's made a beeline for goddamn MJF, who is a chicken shit, and who did bail out of the ring, and Jungle Boy chased him around the ring one time while the fucking big guys are in the ring coming to blows. But MJF, fear outruns fucking anger. So MJF hops the fucking rail and Jungle Boy goes in to fucking see about his tag team partners, fucking brawl with Wardlow and the goddamn Marco Stunt who's laying there unconscious. And as he's checking him, MJF comes and grabs Jungle Boy's ankle and jerks him out to the floor and puts that armbar on the concrete floor and starts cranking it while all the shit's going on in the ring. So as soon as the fucking big man Wardlow takes a bump over the top rope and lands on his feet and still wants to get in, but there's MJF down on the floor cranking the fucking arm, and he sees that and he goes over to that and he grabs MJF, and he's his bodyguard after all. And they fucking take off, and there's Jungle Boy selling while fucking Luchasaurus jumps down to check on Jungle Boy. And my God, Jungle Boy is in jeopardy with a possible bad wing going into this one-on-one matchup with that prick MJF this coming Saturday night. Or they could all just walk off. Anyway, what'd you think?
I agree with you about MJF being the best worker there, and I think it stands out when you see some of the other matches on there where obviously everyone just does nonstop flips and everyone's jumping onto everyone else. He doesn't need to do any of that stuff. He wrestles like there is an audience there, and they're reacting to what he's doing. Because if there was an audience there, they would be reacting to what he was doing. I disagree with you in the sense that I thought he gave too much to Marco Stunt. I can't blame him for that, because AEW keeps putting Marco Stunt in these matches, and they probably don't want it just to be a completely one-sided squash, which it should be. It should be against Lance Archer or Brody Lee or MJF. But I didn't agree with. I don't think Marco Stunt should be getting any offenses. Marco Stunt, just when he walks around, you know what he looks like? It hit me when I was watching this. Remember when Rick Rude used to take an atomic drop, and he would like stick his ass out?
Yes.
That's all the time with Marco Stunt. Whenever he's walking around, he has like the Rick Rude atomic drop look to him. But
he's only as big around as one of Rude's legs.
Yeah, I mean,
and also what you just said. Yes, I agree because of the concept of Marco Stunt that he shouldn't have got as much as he did. But I think that MJF was looking at it as a mental exercise. How much can I let this kid do to still not actually knock me down, and give it the impression that he actually has some offense, but still at the same time never take any. I think he was, and he might have a little Stockholm syndrome of being, locked up with the fucking.
Like I said, I'm not blaming MJF. They booked the match, and he did as good as anyone could do with that match. I've said this before. I really love MJF and Wardlow as a unit. Wardlow is so good in that role as a bodyguard. I agree with you about it was awkward at the end. Obviously, they're building up. Eventually, you want to see Luchasaurus and Wardlow. But the way they did it and the way they set... Again, another one where there's a pay-per-view this weekend. But this just seemed more like it was setting up next week's television show than it was a pay-per-view.
Well, and also they want to see Wardlow and Luchasaurus because they're the two big guys and they look so impressive. And the fucking people at home on the couch would have popped if they got into a goddamn brief boom, 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 but there couldn't be anybody. Nobody needed to take a bump and nobody needed to be dominant. It needed to be even, and there needs to be fucking chaos around it. The problem is that it's going to be one of those things where if they're not careful, the people want to see it until they actually see it, and then they never want to see it again. Because Luchasaurus, as we've seen, is hit and miss and needs to be led, and Wardlow is green. But especially with Wardlow in the company, this Brody Lee thing is completely redundant. You've got a young guy who hadn't been spoiled by anything anywhere that looks good in a fucking suit
that looks like a bodyguard or a badass type that should not sell or back down. And you don't need to duplicate with other people on the card. Anyway, but yeah, I like them together, and except for just they needed a more graceful exit. They needed a more graceful exit. I enjoyed the next segment because it was so nice to hear two guys that actually sounded like they meant what they were saying, both talking to each other at the same time. Because usually you get one side maybe that might actually know how to do a promo, but you generally don't get two. And then we had Arn Anderson and Jake Roberts in the ring at the same time. And Arn stole this show to me because actually Jake went off kilter in a couple of instances. Sitting at the ends of the table to me looked awkward, but they wanted to have some space in between them. I think they could have sat at either end, and Tony sat in the middle as a separator, and it looked more natural. But Double A is still fantastic, and he says things and words things unlike any other person. He says plain spoken things, but in a memorable way. And at first he was really starting to kick it in on Archer, and Jake brought it back to the two of them kind of oddly. Who is cutting Jake's hair, by the way? They need to do some kind of sobriety program.
Man, you ain't lying. I noticed that when he got in the ring. I was like, what is going on? I mean, I know he had hair replacement surgery at some point, but that doesn't explain anything about what's going on with his hair right now.
Who has hair replacement surgery for your fucking sideburns? I don't, but hey, it makes my home haircut with Harley Quinn's poopy butt trimmers look better. But anyway, Double A plugged Mike Tyson, promoted whether Tyson might fuck with Jake or not. Then he really kicked in strong on the match, and he made this thing. I really think he did. We've heard Jake. We haven't heard Arn as much or nearly as much as we should have. And I think he really made this one. And then, of course, they tease a fight, and the referees come in to get in between them and everything. But now think about this for a second. A lot of this television show, to me, is people are being given segments to produce. Let's say if Arn and Jake are in a segment, well, obviously, they know what they're doing. We'll just give them a little input on what to say, and one of the tag team bookers might produce one segment, or somebody else might produce another segment. This was a great deal. Great little, two serious veterans that can talk and cut promos and make you believe they believe what they're saying. But for the overall logic of the television program, that should be the job of the person that doesn't exist, which is the person that's in charge of everybody. Two senior citizens knock a table over and stand up to fight 6 feet apart, and referees appear out of the woodwork. But in the previous segment before last, a guy milked felonious assault on a motherfucker for 3 full minutes, and not a soul came to the ring to do anything about it. Am I still playing chess while everybody else is on checkers, or did anybody else notice this also?
They don't know how to format a show, and they don't know how to lay out a show. That's been quite apparent, especially the last few weeks.
And this is not knocking AEW just because I hate the Young Bucks. This is what the fuck is going on here. If it's gravity in segment 1, then the gravity needs to work same way in segment 3. Shit just can't start falling upwards. And they come up with a lot of this shit because they think in their mind it's the spot, or it's the thing, or it's the angle, or whatever. Yet if you're shooting a big budget Hollywood motion picture, a Western movie about gunfighters in the 1880s and the fucking gunfight at the OK Corral, it may make a great spot if somebody gets run over by a fucking Honda in the final scene, but it wouldn't work in the fucking movie. So then they did another Darby Allin video that looked good and made absolutely no sense to me, and followed that with a promo from Pac about pockets, where he looked pretty cool and had some animosity and et cetera, et cetera. But of course, he's talking about that fucking moron, so that, that's death. And then they had the big match.
Pockets against Ray Phoenix. And I will admit, the only reason that I didn't fast forward this is because I was hoping of a repeat from last week where fucking Ray Phoenix hit that sidekick and tatered Pockets into fucking next Tuesday. But I'm glad I didn't miss this, because this, you know how like on Dark Side of the Ring, when people have heard shit stain talk, or, you know, people have heard recently Kevin Dunn talked about, or all these people that I've never liked, and then they say, Cornette, you're vindicated. Now we understand. This whole presentation of this match and everything around it vindicated everything I've said about hiring these fucking darlings of the Mud Show crowd who spend their entire life working in barns playing wrestler because they've seen it on television, but they didn't take it seriously enough to actually take it seriously. This was fucking rotten from start to finish. And it wasn't just on Pockets. He started out by putting his hands in his pockets, ended ducking and running, and then they did some of the sloppy Chikara imitation lucha stuff where Ray Phoenix, who actually is a legitimate luchador, let Pockets play luchador. Then they went to the break. When they come back, Phoenix is getting heat on Pockets, and now they're trying to be serious. After the guy was legitimately wrestling with his hands in his pockets in the earlier segment, and they were doing a flippy choreographed gymnastics that didn't look like serious. Now they're trying to get serious. Then Pockets makes his comeback. And then, Brian, he hit a dive to the floor. Here's what he did. He bumped the fucking guy, and the guy rolled out on the floor, and Pockets hit the ropes and ran and dove through the ropes onto Phoenix. And when they landed, neither one of them even left their feet. He hit Phoenix. Phoenix backed up into the fucking railing. Pockets landed on his feet then, and Pockets turned around and pitched fucking Phoenix back into the goddamn ring. Now they're doing dives where nobody even takes a fucking bump. And then he gets him back in the ring as fast as he can so nobody can sell it. Then, let's see. Pockets hit a DDT that looked like it killed Phoenix and got a 2 count. And JR made the joke that, well, Jake Snake Roberts used to beat people with that move. Then Pockets hit a DDT on Phoenix while flying off the top rope and got a 2 count. I then wrote, this shit is horrible for the business because people that become wrestlers without knowing anything about the business of wrestling imitate this shit instead of MJF. That's why this shit's bad for the business. Then they did some more dangerous, implausible bunch of shit, including the thing off the top where, you know, it's obvious they're both holding each other on the top. And then here comes Kip Sabian to ringside with a ladder because they're promoting a 9-way ladder match where I guess they're going to fucking, somebody's going to dive in from a helicopter on pay-per-view. So Sabian comes to ringside with the ladder and sits on the top of it, which distracts Ray Phoenix, so he has to stand there for 20 seconds because, my God, you know, it takes 20 seconds to figure out why a guy's sitting on a ladder. And he don't speak English, so I'm sure that has something to do with it. And the camera missed the nut shot. No, wait a minute. Pockets turned around and got distracted. So he does speak English. Even worse, he's distracted by Sabian. And Phoenix, he hits the nut shot that the camera misses. So while Pockets is standing there looking at the guy on the ladder, Phoenix rolls him up, and the announcers say, oh, but the camera missed. He just hit him in the nuts. And Pockets lost. Meanwhile, Kip Sabian is dressed in some fucking outfit with flip-flops, looking like a hairstylist on Queer Eye from the Straight Guy. And he's still sitting on this ladder, and here comes SCU for whatever reason. They come out and tease they're going to tip him over by shaking the ladder. Then they leave and like they're going to walk back so he can breathe easy, and then they come back and tip over the ladder and knock him into the ring. So they can't even do this without being fucking funny somehow and putting a hat on a hat. So now Sabian's in the ring and SCU jumps in, and but SCU jump Phoenix who just benefited by Sabian's distraction, but then here comes Jimmy Havoc, and they're having a fight, and this is a fucking mess. And then all these guys, Sabian, Jimmy Havoc, SCU, Ray Phoenix, Pockets, they have a staged fake fight with bad brawling until everybody ends up on the floor except for Phoenix. And they're doing that thing where they're holding on to each other, and the camera's clearly showing this. They're holding on to each other, and they're punching each other while they're looking over their shoulder to see whether the guy in the ring that's going to dive on them is in the right place. They're not even looking at the guy that's punching them, and this goes on for 20 to 30 seconds until Phoenix gets in the right place to jump up on the goddamn top rope, do a giant goddamn leap off that and some kind of fucking forward or backflip or whatever. He missed every goddamn human being on that floor. He, from 15 feet in the air, he just took a backdrop and landed flat of his back on the goddamn floor outside the ring. Mats or no, that should have fucking broken every goddamn vertebrae in his back. So then, as soon as that happened, everybody fell down anyway now. Even though he went, obviously, on the 16 replays that they showed to show this fake, phony bullshit that they were doing. They were so, look, he really hurt himself. They replayed this fucking botch 15 times to show the guy really hurt himself, and it also showed all the, did it not, Brian? Was it just me looking for it, or did it not also show everybody else falling down for obviously no reason?
I believe so.
Okay. So I'm glad we want to remind everybody watching that what we're doing is fake, but occasionally somebody really does get hurt because he does something stupid. Okay, then he misses this. He lands on his back with a splat. Jimmy Havoc laying there calmly pulls his T-shirt down next to it. And then suddenly, I swear to fuck God, I'm not kidding you. Suddenly, from the audience, Colt Cabana jumps over the rail or whatever, runs in, jumps up on the ropes, and does an acai moonsault, a backflip moonsault, onto the group that's standing up, and he missed them. He may have got one guy. He went right through the fucking middle. And he hits the goddamn ground. And I'm dying. I'm rewinding this over and over. This is why we recorded this late today, because I'm rewinding this over and over to watch this cacophony of fuck-ups. And then, of course, who's in the ring? Pockets and his best friends. And they put their hands together, and he puts his foot, and they boost him up and forward flip him into a cannonball over the top onto the group, and he overshot everybody and missed, and they all fell down again. I'm surprised they all weren't killed. Well, no, the guys on the floor should have been killed because nobody ever actually hit them, but everybody that dove should have been killed. Sloppy fighting, missed dives, botch replays, outlaw talent, dressed out there like bums that just came off the fucking beach in Jacksonville. And it just flip-flops and shorts and fucking T-shirts and just a bunch of fucking outlaw wrestlers having sloppy, bad matches on national cable television because they didn't have the sense to sign responsible people in the first place that didn't go to fucking high school with the goddamn vice presidents. But wait, there's more. Chris Statlander and Hikaru Shida against Nyla Rose and Dr. Britt Baker. And I swear to God to you, I'm going to read exactly what I wrote right before the bell rang. I'm watching this match to see Nyla Rose take more bumps than the other three girls combined, and Chris Statlander drop somebody on their head. Little did I know that both these things would happen in the same move. They start out 100 miles an hour. Nyla Rose is the second girl that Britt Baker, I think, was the first girl to take a bump, and Nyla Rose was the second girl to take a bump within 30 seconds of the start of the match. And then they got Baker out and they beat up Nyla Rose, the baby faces, before the heels could heal. Then Nyla Rose beat up Chris Statlander for a while. Then they went to the break. When they came back, Britt Baker, they've apparently got some fucking heat through the break on Chris Statlander. I don't watch this picture-in-picture bullshit. But Britt Baker has Statlander's leg, and Statlander goes for an enziguri and went straight over the top of her head, and Britt Baker knew she missed, but she didn't know what to do, so she just kind of stood there wobble-legged for a second and then just sat kind of back down. And Statlander gets the tag. And Shida makes a comeback and then tags Chris Statlander back in. And I thought they were lost then. I didn't know how much longer this thing was going to go, but as usual with every girls match they present, they let them get too complicated. They do shit that's way above their fucking pay grade and their experience level, and just too much shit that girls shouldn't be doing, whether they can do it or not. And this is what happened here in a second. Chris Statlander and Shida get a double Death Valley driver onto Nyla Rose. Nyla Rose was bumped around more than Riho bumps in her fucking matches. The supposed beast. So they double Death Valley drive her onto Britt Baker in the corner. And surprise, surprise, not only, and it wouldn't have been a good idea to do it anyway, but not only was it not a good idea to do it like they were trying to do it, but they missed it. And they instead of into the corner, they dumped her sideways, and she landed on Britt Baker's leg. And has anybody heard? Was it broken?
I haven't heard about any of the
Has anybody got a medical update? Because this wasn't part of the entertainment presentation, as they say. No, this big 200-pound whatever the fuck woman got fucking slammed on Britt Baker's ankle because they were fucking off kilter and they didn't know what they were doing. So anyway. Then Chris Statlander is pulling Britt Baker out to the middle to do more shit to her by her bad leg, and picked her up and gave her a slam, kept trying to do shit to her, and finally she rolls off, and the match is continuing while Britt Baker's off camera, because then later on you see their doctor is checking on her. The match continues now. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. Chris Statlander picked Nyla Rose up off the top rope with a shoulder ride. Gave her a shoulder ride and then hit a face buster on her. What the piss in her mouth while she's down there. How many fucking people gave Andre the Giant or Big John Studd shoulder rides? They beat this girl up. She's the biggest one and the only one they could smash over as any semblance of a fucking threat to somebody, and she gets beat up and thrown around more than anybody. Then after that, the match went on and on while the doctor was checking Britt, and it just kept going. They didn't know what the fuck they were doing because they've lost one of their individuals. At one point, I think the referee called for him to go home, but because nobody can actually call shit in the ring anymore and they all have to practice ahead of time, Chris Statlander, somehow it went from Chris Statlander getting a 2 count on Nyla Rose, and then Statlander just laid down and rolled out of the ring. Shida, like she was going to fucking, now I don't know what they're doing. She was going to powerbomb Nyla Rose, but Nyla Rose backdropped her and covered her for a 2 count and then turned around and powerbombed her for a 1, 2, 3. So the referee was trying to call them to do something, but they didn't fucking get it from the back. So that was fucking rotten. Then Nyla Rose pulls out a table from underneath the ring. So now the women have to use tables also. It's not bad enough that they have bad matches where they actually really hurt each other, but they got to use tables also just to bury everything that might be useful to the men. A woman going through a table is not going to fucking sell any goddamn pay-per-view tickets because it's not even like we haven't seen that. It just distracts. You've got the fucking salad distracting from the steak. But regardless, she pulls a table out. Chris Statlander has disappeared, is nowhere to be seen. Shida is selling. Nyla Rose is setting the table up in the ring and putting Shida on it. Then, not even on purpose, just you see it out of the corner of your eye on the screen. You see the referee and the doctor helping Britt Baker out and ignoring Nyla Rose setting up the table and putting Shida on it, which, yes, Britt Baker was really hurt. But think about this in the moment, for fuck's sake. The referee and the doctor leaving and helping the one girl out while what was going on in the ring was like the police and the ambulance leaving the scene of an accident while half the cars are still wrecking. So didn't they have anybody else they could send out? Because it's supposed to be real. Even if the other real shit's on the ground, the shit in the ring's supposed to be real too. Somebody think on the fucking fly. This is why Jim Cornette used to yell and scream a lot at TV tapings, because when shit like this happens, this is what I was yelling and screaming. Go, go, get. Anyway, Nyla Rose goes to the top to splash Sheeta through the table, but Statlander reappears. She's been hiding underneath the apron, and she holds Nyla Rose for just a second so that Sheeta can get up. She has to position Nyla Rose's legs. She can barely climb up on the fucking turnbuckles. She finally gets up there and hooks Nyla Rose. Sheeta's 125 pounds. Nyla Rose is 225. But Sheeta hooks Nyla Rose for a vertical suplex while she's sitting on the top turnbuckle, where Nyla Rose obviously has to help by stepping up on the top turnbuckle to push herself over so that she gets suplexed through the fucking table, which is complete and utter garbage. She just beat Sheeta with a fucking powerbomb. 1, 2, 3. But then Sheeta recovers and superplexes her off the top rope through a fucking table. Nobody gets over. Nobody gives a shit. Here's what you've done. You've given 15 or 20 minutes of television time to a bad match where one of your talent got legitimately hurt, another one got buried, and a couple more of them looked like they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. What'd you see?
I saw reinforcement of my idea that the AEW women's division was a mistake. They shouldn't have it. I think Britt Baker is a talent and a star, but maybe we should do something with her other than in the ring. And this isn't her fault. She didn't get injured. That injury was not her fault.
She was sitting there waiting on them to do stupid shit to her.
And you said
his only fault it was.
You said last week, Chris Statlander's going to hurt somebody.
Well, she had help here. And you know what? Britt Baker could be a modern day Tammy Fitch in Smoky Mountain Wrestling as a manager with that fucking promo and that mouth. And she wouldn't have to, and she had maybe what she falls back on if they've hurt her badly. But this just, what the fuck? And they were doing shit that spot would have immediately been vetoed by me or anybody else that thought, what the fuck? Why would you let somebody do that to Nyla Rose if everybody was safe? It's a fucking whatever. Anyway, then Marvez did a promo with Moxley back in the back, and this was actually a good material and good promo. I wish he'd have kept it to that rather than the stinker that he pulled with the fucking chair in the chair. I wrote, I don't want to see any more of this show, but I can't look away. So we're going home here, folks. Sean Spears news. Is this a spoof? And if it is indeed a spoof, in what are they spoofing? Is this a spoof of WWE? Is it a spoof of the news? Is it a spoof of wrestling? It wasn't funny. It was weird. He did a good job at whatever the fuck it was. But this is not like, once again, in the logic of this universe, how was this thing produced and aired? Can you see on a UFC broadcast, if instead of Joe Rogan interviewing one of the fighters in the cage, this suddenly popped up and it was fucking, one of the Diaz brothers trash talking fucking George St. Pierre or whatever. Does the fighter or wrestler have the means and the facilities to shoot this thing and edit it and produce it and give it to the All Elite Wrestling crew? If that is the case, why did they air it? Because if they were in on it, then they're in on a heel. The actual television crew that's responsible for the program, for the promotion, is in on a heel belittling and mocking a babyface. That's not right. So obviously this guy would have had to have this produced on his own, but why would All Elite Wrestling air it? Because there was no mention by a manager of we have bought this time or purchased this time. No disclaimer, the views of Shawn Spears are not that of All Elite Wrestling, and this guy's a prick that's going to any expense to get under the fucking skin of Cody Rhodes. The promotion is in on it. We're presenting an entertainment piece not to be taken seriously because this makes no sense in a logical world where this is actually happening. So we've launched into Green Acres. Instead of this fucking heel giving a really good promo and being well-spoken, like coming up with some really pointed material in a promo setting where people could take it seriously because he was speaking from the heart, he's doing this with help and validation from the promotion, so it takes the edge off of it. It doesn't make any sense. And once again, am I thinking too deep for these people? They don't understand it's not just the performance, it's the presentation.
Remember I said a few weeks ago, and you kind of dismissed it, that they should say, we have hired a crew of filmmakers, and every wrestler on the roster has access to a filmmaker. Because it's not just him. I mean, look, this segment was silly and stupid. I don't know what it was trying to achieve. But Darby Allin has his videos that are polished and made. Pac returned this week with a polished video where he's going back and forth between the scary look and just talking. And then there's this, and there's other people and other examples. You could just explain it that way. Like, the wrestlers, in order to express themselves fully, have access to filmmakers just out of film school that we've hired, that we brought on, and they'll be
and they get to, they can do anything that they want.
And they can do anything that we want. And we have assured them that unless it's something that's a crime, we will give them their equal opportunity. We will air it. Not just, hey, what's this? Hey, what's this airing now?
Okay, in 90 seconds or less, you just explained how all of that stuff could get fucking aired on television, but they don't bother to because they think because their entire audience is in on everything and knows it's all a bunch of fucking caca, and they don't want to include, I don't know, anybody who might actually want shit to make sense because that interferes with their creative freedom. Anyway, so he did a good job for whatever it was, did Shawn Spears.
For whatever it was. Yeah.
For whatever it was. Sammy Guevara and Matt Hardy, the main event, and I enjoyed this. Matt didn't change clothes in the ice machine. He didn't appear and disappear and teleport. Sammy Guevara is great. And okay, everybody now cover your ears. Cornette never says anything good about modern wrestlers. Yes, he's been involved in some silliness, but they all have. And you know, he's not the one calling the shots. But when you put him in the ring to have a match, he's got that slappable face. He's got the heel energy. He's got the fucking attitude. He's really coming along as far as his work, actually performing moves. He's nailing things. And he's very athletic, but also he has the body language and the attitude, and he's picking up little things that you see on either how to sell or how to register or just how to get something across. He's really doing well. So, and Matt had a match instead of doing the fucking, 3,000-year-old bullshit. He kicked the shit out of Sammy for a while with good action, and then when Guevara slipped that twist of fate and hit the kick to the head, boom, that was a nice little heat spot. But then Matt takes back over, but he gets Rona'd and rolled to the floor, and that's the only thing. Another dive. If he had been rolled to the floor and Sammy had even done a fucking baseball slide and kicked him into something and then went out and posted him like a heel, but he does the dive where he pretty much missed Matt, but they both sold it, and that's the way he really got the heat on him to go to the break. Why are the heels diving anyway? And I know, but yes, because they can. He can execute that move. But what I'm saying, a guy to run and dive out of the ring onto his opponent is spectacular, and it's explosive, and it shows courage and bravery and fire. And it makes no sense for a fucking heel to do it. It should be a big explosion from a babyface that's had all they can stand, the can stands no more. But anyway, point is, Sammy could have fucking slid out and fucking posted him, got the same fucking response. Anyway, when they come back from the break, Matt's making a little comeback. He's firing back, and JR said Matt Hardy, he's lost Vanguard 1, for God's sake. Like, it's the worst thing that ever happened to him in his life. But I'm sure Matt was probably in charge of this match, but it was a good TV match. They had enough people and noise that you forgot about the atmosphere. Sammy did a good fucking job. And finally, I thought maybe one twist of fate too many. But because here's the thing. Sammy Guevara is one of those guys takes that, like Val Venus, when he'd take a DDT and back in the 90s, it would stick him like a fence post. His feet would be straight up in the air. You remember that? It looks so fucking memorable. Sammy Guevara is one of these guys, takes one of these spikes great because, and Kyle O'Reilly has done it. I've seen him do it too. These skinny guys can really do that great. But if you do it 3 times in the same match, people can see through it because then they start to catch on. That's why if you do something that's different, if you take a bump or sell a move or do some kind of move offensively even that is really good and gets a shock reaction from people and looks different than everybody else or looks in any way convincing in the modern wrestling atmosphere, never do it twice the same match, because the second time people will notice something and the third time they'll start to figure out whatever your trick is and it will be less impressive. But anyway, Matt finally got the fucking twist fade, boom, 1, 2, 3. And then he goes out and gets a chair and he's going to bash fucking Sammy Guevara's head in, I guess, because after all, he got locked in a fucking freezer. So retribution. But here comes the inner circle on the screen. And here was another deal. They did a good match and got a point across that at least Matt Hardy is fucking ready for the pay-per-view. But now the inner circle is there and they've got Olivier, old Kenny Olivier, the world's greatest living wrestling artist, slammed up against the goalpost, and Santana and Ortiz are holding him. And Hager tossed a bucket of water on him. Were they going to do a wet T-shirt contest, or what was that all about? Just waking him up, I guess, from the beating that he had
I was hoping they were going to waterboard
sustain. Yeah, but I wish they would. But he has to be flat on his back for that. Jericho's mic wasn't on at first, minor glitch, but they've got Kenny Olivier on the football field. And they're beating the shit out of him. And now Matt Hardy sees this on the screen. And Jericho goes over and hits Kenny Olivier with a pretty decent shot in the stomach with a baseball bat, even from a left-handed swing. I didn't know that Jericho was left-handed. I don't know if I would have trusted that if he's not. But anyway, he hits him with the baseball bat and then suddenly appearing in the stands, in the empty stands with masks and in full gear, including Killing the Business on their fucking fruity little goddamn vests, is the Road Warrior Bucks.
Well, no. They're the Road Warriors, Buck and Skullet. So it's Road Warrior Buck and Road Warrior Skullet, not the Road Warrior Bucks. Yes.
Road Warrior Buck and Road Warrior Skullet appear, and Santana and Ortiz immediately run to them so that the Bucks can each dive off of the grandstand or whatever on them. And I swear to God, I don't know which one. I think it may have been Road Warrior Buck instead of Balding Buck, but he missed his fucking guy. He missed and went over the top of his fucking guy. And then the Road Warrior Buck and Skullet beat up Santana and Ortiz and Hager and Jericho. They grab a chair. They're throwing chair shots. So you have 4 guys on the field, one of them armed with a baseball bat, and one babyface that's already been hit by a baseball bat. The 2 Bucks show up, and they're kicking the 4 heels' asses with the base, not even using the baseball, but the heels still have the bat, I think. And goddamn, then Matt Hardy arrives. And I'm like, well, because he had to run from next door. Thanks for coming. We've already got this. But then, wouldn't you know, I swear to God, Shitstain booked this. As soon as the odds were even and all the fucking baby faces had showed up, then the heels took over. And so Matt Hardy was the last one to go down, because you see Matt Hardy hit, and we're not going to call Ortiz anymore. We're going to call him Pampiro Firpo Jr. You see Matt Hardy hit Firpo Jr. 2 times with the baseball bat, once in the stomach, once across the back. And then they shoot something else, and they come back 15 seconds later, and Firpo has the bat beating up Matt Hardy. So Matt got the fucking memo that, well, goddamn, soon as I get here, now they're going to take over on us all. And so then the heels beat up the baby faces when the odds were even, until Adam Page, in the most impressive thing in the whole fucking show, ran the length of the football field in 10 seconds. I counted it 1001, 1002 while he was wearing cowboy boots. He hit the guy. He started his comeback with a big fucking charging clothesline at the end of the field and fucking made a comeback, and the heels kind of fed him. And that was great. And then somehow, once again, the fight just trailed off. And Inner Circle, who had been beaten and pulverized by everything in the world, wandered off. And the baby faces, who had been beaten and pulverized by everything in the world, were yelling, "Come back here." And somebody said, "Inner Circle jerk, we're ready." And they separated. I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at. It's like they're making this shit up as they go along, even.
There's no creative leadership there, and part of the problem is the people who are in roles of creative leadership, specifically the son of the billionaire in charge, thinks he knows what he's doing and is told by plenty of people that he knows what he's doing, but I don't know. I guess I'm just not the audience for it. The more I talk about this, the more people will say that I'm completely out of touch with what
they own a football team, right?
His dad does, yes.
Okay. Does the owner of the football team also serve as coach?
No. Actually, it's funny. In baseball, when Ted Turner bought the Braves, at one point he made himself the manager. And then Major League Baseball has now, there's a rule since that point that no owner is allowed to manage a baseball team ever again because Ted made such a circus out of it when he did.
Well, and also because most owners have a shit ton of money, but most coaches or managers or trainers, depending on the sport, have actual experience in that sport, even not at a high level. As the old saying goes, Ric Flair is not the most prolific trainer of great wrestlers in history. Sometimes the great ones are not natural teachers, but all the great coaches have played the game. All the great trainers have fought the fight. All the great managers have, in whatever sport, the owner does not necessarily, the only reason that it got to be a cliche in wrestling is that the owner was also the fucking boss, or the boss of the wrestlers, is that for the most part, wrestling had so many hometown heroes made by the national TV boom in the 50s that they all went home and either bought or stole their own home territories. But they were stars in wrestling first before they were promoters and matchmakers and owners. And they knew what worked and what didn't. And they knew when to say no and when not to. And they knew that, sometimes who to fuck around. Do you let the talent fuck you around, whether inadvertently or not, whether they mean to or not, by their actions? They diminish your company, or do you put your foot down and either piss them off by not letting them do what they want to do, or fuck them around first before they fuck you around? You don't just step in at that level. Obviously, national cable television, become a professional wrestler when you've never been on TV before because you look like shit, and it shows. And you don't just step in at that level as a booker, even if you got a lot of good ideas, if you've never had any experience before. And you definitely, and I found out that out in the past, even though my first go round, I was just a minion and not even the fucking decision maker. But you also, you don't step into any high level position at your chosen profession without having any experience at a lower level position, at coming up through the ranks. You don't go to the NBA without playing neighborhood ball and high school ball and college ball. You don't become the owner of a fucking shoe store without selling a few shoes. And the one thing that I saw missing that I've been born right on is the one fucking guy to say, fuck you, that's stupid, and here's why. And we're all going to do things my way. And that's what creates every great wrestling promotion since the dawn of time. This is not a fucking democracy. It's not a goddamn group project. It's not up for committee. It's one motherfucker, whether it be Eddie Graham or Bill Watts or Dusty Rhodes or goddamn Leo Garibaldi or fucking Louis Tillett.
Vince McMahon.
Or Vince McMahon or Jack Pfeffer or fucking goddamn, whoever, the Paul Bowser, for fuck's sake, and whoever it may be, said, here's what we're going to do. And here is, if you're going to do what you want to do, does what you want to do fit in my universe? Does it fit in my world of logic? That's why all the territories had different styles, because they were promoted by different people that had different outlooks on wrestling, and especially they wanted to sell their people what they were comfortable with when they were active themselves, which is why that all the territories had the different personalities. But the one thing that they all agreed on, because we don't fucking make a joke out of this shit and we treat it like a shoot because it's our livelihood. And whether people know or whether they don't know, we're not going to fucking tell them. And they don't need to know any more than they need to know. And you could say the same thing about the world of magic or about any showbiz presentation for that matter. That guy ain't here. And I saw that off the top of the fucking bat, and I realized that there was a lot of fucking outlaw-minded people that wanted to entertain themselves at the expense of the fans rather than on their behalf. And that's what we've got. So there you go.
Can I say something else too?
I wish you would so we can get done with this.
I didn't comment earlier about the Arn Anderson, Jake the Snake segment, which I was really looking forward to.
Because I steamrollered you, didn't I?
Well, that's quite fine. It's your show. That's why
I'm glad you said that.
That's why I asked for permission here to speak my mind at the end.
Mother, may I?
But I was very disappointed by that segment because unless they're setting up Jake versus Arn, which I can't imagine that they're doing, I can't even understand what the hell they were talking about. They were talking past each other at certain points, talking like they're building up a match between each other. Cody and Lance Archer is this Saturday.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, Cody's wife went down and had a snake put on her, and Jake dry humped her. Last week, Cody drove a few feet angrily into a gate, got out of his truck, which has the same neck tattoo as him. They had a brawl. Cody has not done one fired-up promo making me care about this match. We didn't even see Lance Archer this week. It was almost like they were an afterthought. And Jake's promos, by and large, since he got there, are about Jake, not about Lance Archer.
Well, that's what, remember I said at one point, Arn started to kick in about Archer, and Jake interrupted him and brought it back to them and got him off track, and he never really went back to Archer.
This has been such a piss-poor job of building up this match after they did that angle with Brandy, which, by the way, we figured out a way to get Brandy off TV. It's been 2 weeks now. But, and they're going to have Mike Tyson there. I remember Jake Roberts versus the Snowman in the Superdome, where they had Muhammad Ali there, and Jake wouldn't sell for Ali. The Barbarian, John Nord, was flying all over the place. Jake wouldn't go down. What's going to happen with Tyson now when he throws a punch?
Oh, that's right. Well, and that was Jake actually commented. He said, hey, he was just here for one night. I was the top heel. I had to keep my heat.
But I just think they were building up a match between them. Cody was an afterthought. You didn't even see Cody's image barely on this show. This is the go-home show.
I'm not explaining it, but yeah, with Arn, and that is the most, I think, in aggregate, not just the longest promo Arn's had on their television, but it's the longest in total. He hasn't spoken that much yet. If he had the product that he's selling in front of him, i.e. Cody Rhodes, he could obviously sell it and get it over. Cody can do his own promo. We've seen that, but he isn't. But Arn could sell it and get it over. But when you put Arn at the opposite end of the table with Jake, who's all over the place and surprising him, they sounded like they all meant it. They're professionals. And as I said, it was refreshing to hear somebody that sounded like that they meant it. But as you pointed out, they didn't really sell the fucking match that much. And Jake, we've heard Jake, and this wasn't the best Jake that we've heard. It's something they need to. You need to see all the moving parts together. What if it had just been me and Paulie doing the promos without the Midnight Express teams? Okay, we would have done them better, but without the Midnight Express teams to do the fucking matches, we would have just been yelling at each other. You never see Arn with Cody in a talking confrontational position with heels. You never see, up until the last 2 weeks, you haven't seen Jake with Archer. Part of that was the pandemic. Where the fuck was Archer now? He was there last week. He can't get to the same fucking place. So they're never actually all together.
What would be more effective? This segment or a Cody interview where he can go one of two ways? He could be really angry and yelling, or he could be completely methodical and incensed. I'm going to get you. You put your hands on my wife. You dragged her in the ring. You put a snake on her. You dry humped her. I'm going to get you again. Now that I think about it, it's all things Jake did, not what Lance Archer did.
Well, yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm going to. Well, that needs to be the way he sells it then. All right, just out of the top of my ass, my cavernous rectum. What about if there was one of these artsy fartsy fucking videos of all these snakes slithering around? And you think it's going to be Jake the Snake, and all of a sudden you pull back and the fucking leg they're slithering around doesn't look like Jake's leg, and the fucking body they're slithering at doesn't look, oh, it's Cody. And I don't know if he's scared of snakes or not. I wouldn't do this promo, but if he's goddamn the American Nightmare, he's got a bunch of snakes, and he's doing that laid back promo, and he's just saying, I'm not scared of snakes, Jake, and I'm not scared of you. But I don't care if I was, because after what you did to my wife, I've got to get even. And the only way that I can get even is by taking down, beating up, going through, walking over, or in some fashion getting past that big jacked up, crazy 6'7", 285-pound beast that you brought over here from Japan. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. One way or another, he will have to kill me. And here's the thing, Jake. I've got a burning deep hatred for you and a dire need for retribution. And all Lance Archer's looking at is beating somebody up for a payoff. So he's going to have to kill me to stop me. But if he doesn't kill me, I'll fucking reach up. I'll gouge his eyeballs out. I'll bite his fucking nutsack off. I'll bash him over the head with a blunt instrument. I'll do whatever I got to do. Because once he's out of the way, Jake, you old, fat, decrepit, perverted piece of garbage that has leached off of the world for so long now and taken and taken and taken and never given anything back, played the victim all your life. For what you did to my wife and the way you embarrassed my family, you're a senior citizen, and I'm going to beat the hell out of you. And I'm going to fuck you up. And I'm going to put you out of wrestling once and for all, like should have been done a long time ago and like you tried to do to yourself. Jake, I'm going to be the only enemy of yours that's worse than you. Because I'm going to be the one to finish you off. Because who cares about Archer at this point?
I'm going to finish you off so I can get to Sean Spears.
Yeah, so then I can get to Sean Spears and get on Sean Spears News.
When Arn said, Jake, you do DDP yoga now, I was half expecting him to go, and in Cody's corner will be Dallas Page, which would have been an interesting dynamic. I'm not saying I endorse this, but I thought that's where they were going for a split second.
I was expecting him to say, when he said you do DDP yoga, I was expecting it would have worked, but you're still a fat ass.
You do DDP yoga. Can I get a free sample of that?
I was about to say, I guess Arn probably shouldn't have talked about anybody having put on a pound or two, because that was the one thing that worried me there. I'm the only one of all of these guys, my contemporaries, and I was never athletic, and I've never been a gym a day in my life, and I weigh less now than I did then. Anyway, so that whole
Saturday,
that whole fucking thing stunk. Double or Nothing is Saturday. We'll find out whether it's double or nothing. We'll be back with the drive-through Tuesday, so we can give a full report on that, as well as viewer questions. We'll be back next week on The Experience with all kinds of stuff. Please, if you're not in dire need of entertainment to save your life in this time of trial and tribulation, give me another week on Cornette's Collectibles. You don't have to beat your computer up to order quickly. And we're doing the best we can. And otherwise than that, Brian, have we said everything we need to say?
If you really do need more Jim Cornette content, patreon.com/Cornette.
You mercenary thing, you. All right, folks. Thank you for the cakes. Thank you for the laughs. Thank you for the well wishes. I drink the tears of those who hate me. Thank you for that, too. And until next week, thank you, fuck you, and bye-bye, everybody.